everybody, and welcome to the Pascal Show. What's up, everybody? I hope you guys are enjoying your evening, having a great one, doing something amazing, keeping it classy, keeping it very, very respectful and professional this evening. We got a very great show for you guys this evening. I'm very excited about talking to you guys about this particular topic because there's a lot going on when it comes to this whole situation that's revolving around Dave Chappelle's special, The Closer. We have been talking about it. We have been covering it over and over again lately because there's a lot going on. Like I said, a lot going on. But of course, I do have somebody very special coming on to the show to talk about this. I also am going to be opening up the phone lines to talk about all this as well because, like I said, we can't move on. We can't grow as humans if we can't actually have real conversations about topics that might be a tad uncomfortable. All right. So, well, maybe a tad uncomfortable for some people. Let me rephrase that. OK, so good evening to every single person that's coming in to the chat right now. I appreciate all y'all. Please do me a favor. I got to do this because you know the procedure. Please don't forget to hit that like button down. Do not forget to crush that subscribe button. It'd be great to have you a part of the Pascal Show family. All right. Hit that join button. Hit that go follow me and find my Patreon, patreon.com/the Pascal Show. Support a little show that could. You know what I'm saying? It'd be greatly appreciated. But anyway, before I bring on my guest, I got to talk about this and let you guys know what's going on here. So we got to get down to the nitty gritty because we here for a short time, but for a good time, y'all. I'm just gonna keep it straight funky. We're here for a short time, but a good time. All right. So let's get into this story now. I do have an article that I want to pull up that explains a little bit more about this whole situation. October 20th, which is tomorrow, there is a planned walkout. There's a planned walkout for Netflix employees in protest to Dave Chappelle's latest special. I got this article. We got to take a look at this. So as you see right here, Netflix workers plan to walk out as fallout over Dave Chappelle continues. So 2 weeks after the debut of Chappelle's stand-up special, The Closer, on Netflix, the streaming giant is still grappling with internal backlash as a group of its workers prepare to stage a virtual walkout. And a former employee spoke publicly about being fired recently. The walkout is planned for tomorrow, and this is the latest episode of employee unrest surrounding the special, leading to a kind of tough news coverage normally aimed at other tech companies like Facebook and Google. Remember that like 2 weeks ago, there was the huge whistleblower thing about this, about Facebook? Yeah, that was some crazy stuff, y'all. Now Netflix is getting a lot of the brunt of the focus right now due to Chappelle's special. So many on Netflix's staff were angered by Mr. Chappelle's special, criticizing it as homophobic and harmful to transgender people. So a couple of the Netflix chief executives have been steadfast in their support of Mr. Chappelle in communications with staff and have argued that his special has been popular with subscribers. It would not lead to real world harm. Again, I think what they're saying here is a little tone deaf. Don't you think? So there is scheduled to be a full-on walkout here by tomorrow. I don't know what time, but all we know is that there is going to be a scheduled walkout by Netflix employees because of Dave Chappelle's special. I do want to introduce and bring in somebody very special, Miss Toya Washington. She is a life coach. She's the director of program development of I Am Human Foundation. And let's not forget, she is the founder and director of Trans Women of Color Healing Project. Please welcome Toya Washington to the show. How you doing, sweetheart?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
No, thank you for being on and being willing to chop it up with us. You know what I'm saying? But before we go into this conversation about this Dave Chappelle special, about this walkout and all that, and where you stand on it and everything, do you mind telling us a little bit more about this trans women of color healing project?
Right. I have no problem with doing that. But before I get into that, I really like to talk more about who I am. There's a
Sure.
difference between who you are and what you are, right? I believe that I'm a spirit living a human experience with a gift so divine from the Creator that I have been blessed and gifted with the ability to show up in spaces as needed and do what needs to be done. But most importantly, be of service to others. What I am, I'm the founder of the Trans Women of Color Healing Project. I'm a mother, I'm a wife, I'm a graduate of the Freedom School of Solutions Not Punishment. I was on the LGBT Task Force in Atlanta. I was one of the organizers that helped develop the SOPs for the Atlanta Police Department, even though we don't want to be in those type of confrontations. But I was one of the members that helped devise the SOPs that will make that transaction, or I would have to say that encounter, less traumatic for trans and gender nonconforming folk. Um, I was the lead activist and organizer for the first ever trans march here in Atlanta. I'm also on the board, or one of the members that was influential in decriminalizing possession of marijuana for under an ounce here in Atlanta, Fulton County.
Wow.
So just that particular part, I want to highlight and lead with that. There's a difference between who you are and what you are, right?
Facts.
So I wanted to introduce that into the space.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you clarifying that for everyone who's watching and even myself.
Yeah.
Um, when it comes to this whole situation of the walkout, let's just get down to the bullets, shall we?
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts on this walkout? Are you with it? Are you against it? Have you seen the special?
I have,
What are
all
your
right,
thoughts on
I
this?
have. I was on the fence about watching it because we already experienced enough trauma as Black folk. And when you think about the many intersections that we navigate, when you add transgender or transsexual into that, or gender nonconforming, that intersection now puts you into direct um, line of possibly casualty, because there's so many other intersects that we navigate. Some navigate poverty, homelessness, but when you add trans and Black to that, that's another component. I also believe that it's our job as community and patrons and members affected to control, monitor, and carefully select who we spend our money with, and who we spend our money and where we spend our money at. And we choose the platforms that we choose to share our voices and our money. And I believe Netflix is responsible and has an obligation to its subscribers, viewers, partners, and should be accountable for the actions of its employee in this matter, which is Dave Chappelle.
Right. Because I mean, of course, I understand that there is a lot that's being said. There's a lot that has been said. Let's not forget that. There was a lot that has been said in other specials, and then this particular special seems to have really shook the very foundation of a lot of people's opinions.
Mhm.
Obviously, this has become a very extremely polarizing conversation. I mean, you could walk down the street and you can ask six different individuals if they have seen it. For those who have seen it, whether they liked it or not, or they found it offensive or not, you could basically cut it right down the middle.
Yeah.
A lot of times. Now, have you spoke to anybody else in your community that felt that this special did no harm?
No, I haven't. I've been on vacation celebrating my birthday, and I try to
Happy birthday.
stay clear of that. So even when we were communicating, I was on vacation, and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna use this as a teachable moment, and lend my brand and my expertise in some of the work that I do into this particular subject matter here, and be an expert, in which I am. That's what I do daily. So but I have not. I have not. I talked to some friends of mine that watched it, but they didn't have a view that was opposite of mine, right? And one of
Right.
my girlfriends did an interview, and she was one of the reasons why I actually watched it, because she had to do an interview, and she told me how it triggered her and how traumatic it was. So I'm like, I didn't want to watch it. But after communicating and talking with you, I'm like, let me watch this so I can get a better understanding. Because I didn't want to speak from someone else's experiences. I wanted to speak from mine.
Right, right. And so, all right. So then let me ask you this then. And thank you for taking the time to check out the special itself. The story at the end, right?
Hmm.
About Daphne.
Hmm.
Was that, did you feel like it ended on a little bit of a different note? Or do you think damage is already done, too little, too late?
Hmm. But in the closer, Dave Chappelle de- dehumanized trans and non-binary folk by using race and gender to erase the many intersections that black trans folks navigate through. Implying that gay is the white man's ideology is implying that we as black and trans and gay folk are not black enough because we are ambassadors for the gay agenda. I also believe that when he told that particular story of Daphne, it was, to me, it didn't come from a place that was holistic. It didn't come from a place that was healthy, and he, in return, tried to use that little bit of experience to galvanize the hate that has been actually brought up when you talk about this particular topic, and you look at the comments that are under. He used that particular situation or that particular individual to make himself almost an expert on trans lives and matters, and by doing that he believed that he was able to speak to the collective as a member or ally of the collective. And that was a problem for me because we don't know what the actual reason why Daphne killed herself. I
Right.
mean, we can go based off of what he said. He can say the ridicule, but it also can be the lack of acceptance that trans individuals also encounter. It also can be the lack of being able to show up in the space and be authentically yourself that I'm sure she encountered from being on that platform. So it's a myriad of reasons why I believe that him closing with that further pushed his agenda.
Gotcha. Well, so then let me ask you this then, because obviously some people, there are some arguments out here where people are saying that this was created. He brought this to the forefront. He brought it to his platform
Yeah,
to start or strike up a conversation between the LGBTQ plus community and between the two different worlds. I guess the two worlds
right.
that are constantly colliding. Obviously, we all live together, right? What would you say about that? Because there are people out here that do feel like, hey, he brought this out
Yeah,
to the forefront.
absolutely.
It was almost like he was working this out uh, uh, as he was talking about it live in front of people. What do you think about that?
Um, I can say that 40 minutes of abuse, hate, inconsideration, intentional attack, and blatant disrespect toward any group of people is not a joke. At this point, it's an agenda. And I also believe that Dave Chappelle has chosen to align himself with someone who has an agenda. And Chappelle himself declared himself a Turk in support of the Harry Potter author J.K. Rowling, who has been labeled as a trans exclusionary radical feminist for repeatedly
Hmm.
expressing anti trans sentiment. And when he quoted his particular stand, when he used his platform to actually cement his particular stance on that, I believe that he then forwarded agenda.
Gotcha. So when he said gender is a fact, what were your thoughts when you heard that?
That's not, it's not a fact because there's law, there's doctors that and science that proves that it isn't. It is something that you don't have to subscribe to. And I think because of a person's desire not to subscribe to that, more so women, is why he has an issue with it. I believe he believes as a man that he should be entitled to a woman's body no matter what facet or how she shows up. And when someone has chosen not to accept that particular part of them and have denounced that because that's not aligned with who they are, it's problematic. Henceforth, why he had the jokes about the trans and the lesbian women that were masculine, because it's a body, a feminine body that he cannot control or have access to, and men like that have a problem with it.
Gotcha. So then let's boil it down. Let's talk. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm just saying, this is just devil's advocate, playing devil's advocate. Sorry. What would you say to people who just sit here and say, hey, because we've seen Damon Wayans say things about this. We've seen a lot of stand-up comedians shoot. Flame Monroe has stepped out and said, and it has spoke out in support of Dave Chappelle and this stand-up. What do you say to those comedians that are out here that are literally saying, yo, it's comedy. It's a platform in which we poke fun and we push the envelope. That is what comedy or stand-up comedy is all about. What do you say? What are your thoughts on that? On just the bare minimum of it just being jokes.
Like I said, 40 minutes of abuse, hate, inconsideration, and intentional attack and blatant disrespect toward any group of people is not a joke anymore. It's not a joke. And I believe that it's also, it progresses the issue that we're dealing with right now. The erasure that what he's attempting to do is he's trying to rally Black men, most importantly, to take a stance against trans women or a non-binary folk. And we know for a fact that erasure has led to the violence and abuse that plague Black trans women. And just by using those particular jokes, and he is using those 40 minutes to kind of paint the picture that we're not human, dehumanize us, which makes it more of a target for us to be victims of the attacks that we encounter.
Gotcha. And I appreciate you being so candid and honest about this. And I know that there are other people that do feel some type of way about this stand-up, saying that this is just emboldening violence out in the streets, making it okay because obviously there are a lot of people of the trans community that are constantly violated, if not killed, out in the streets just for wanting to live their life. And so,
I mean, just a few days before the closure aired, a Black trans woman was fatally shot in Miami, October the 2nd. That her death is the 40th violent killing of a trans or non-conforming person in 2021. And we can say that at least because that's one of the ones that's reported. Half of the deaths go unreported. And like I said, that the way that he framed and took those 40 minutes to expound on the existence or the lack of existence that should exist for Black trans women, our safety, we should not be able to navigate healthily, and trying to coerce or navigate or galvanize Black men into the same fury, to me, was pushing an agenda.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, and I do see what you're saying. I mean, as we talked the other day, I basically said, and I've said this on the show multiple times, if this was another person, if Dave Chappelle was George Carlin or Asian or of any race, and he was attacking a specific group of people, would this still be okay? Would this still be considered okay? Go ahead, Toya.
I think it not okay, but his whole stance on it, right? He started the closer in a very arrogant, confident way, like he was above reproach. And I say all the time, an individual may feel they are above reproach due to status, access, or network, but there is a larger system that's left responsible for the actions of the unapproachable. He felt as though he didn't have anything to lose. This was his last comedy show, as he stated, for a while. That's why he wanted to go back to Detroit. So he didn't feel as though he wouldn't suffer any backlash from this, which he then introduced the baby in his situation and the things that he said that were problematic. And he just was saying that he pretty much didn't care. he didn't care about the backlash. So that has left Netflix the butt of the blame because he's an employee of them, and you have the right to control this after individuals have told you how it was triggering, how traumatic it is, and how it is leaving a negative stain within the trans community.
Now, but then there was other specials that he has had where he went in on the LGBTQ plus community as well, where he was making jokes and saying all those things as well. I didn't see, at least in my personal opinion, I didn't see, or in my perspective, I didn't see a big push to try to quote unquote cancel him. Then why this one of all?
I think the
specials?
intentionality of this particular um, comedy show, it was intentional, and he to me was supporting pushing an agenda. That's what made this problematic because he was aligning himself with key figures that are not in support of in support of trans women as women, and that added to the jokes that he told that were defaming, right? So I think it was the intentionality and him being feel as though he's above approach, and the individual that he has aligned himself to with the closure. If that's the name of it, that is the name of it, right?
Gotcha. I mean, I think I mean I see what you're saying. If you mind me just throwing in my own little two
Yeah.
cents in here as well. I mean, okay. With all due respect, I do understand exactly where you're coming from. I hear you 110% loud and clear. One part of me feels like there was a message in there that may not have been heard. Excuse me, because of the jokes that were wrapped around it. Does that make sense? Because I do feel that,
And can I ask what was the message that you left with?
well, I feel like it because he said it's my experience. It's my human experience
Absolutely.
that the all the like that trans lives do matter. That's how I saw it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you are. It comes down to it boils down to the human aspect of it. We are all human. That we all have our flaws. We all have all have beautiful things and our flaws. We're human, and
Hmm.
that we need to go back down to the bare minimum of realizing that we're all human and let everybody enjoy their experience, enjoy their life, whether that is as trans or as heterosexual
Hmm.
or
And
fluid or whatever.
I
You know?
appreciate you from coming away from leaving from watching that to actually come to that because that's not the sentiment that was received by the majority of folks that are commenting. And you saw the comments, some of them yourself. Were they in it? Were they conducive to your thought process?
Oh wait, you mean as far as like
Some of the comments, some of the comments of vitriol and hate that was spewed toward trans members of the trans
no, they don't.
community.
They don't coincide with my thoughts.
Right.
Clearly, they do
Right.
not. You know, if they coincide with my if I coincided with their thoughts, we wouldn't even be having this conversation right now.
Absolutely.
You see what I'm
Absolutely. So I
saying?
understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
He said that he doesn't have an issue with trans folk. He's always had an issue with white folk, right? His jokes have
Right.
always been geared toward white folk. But I think when you have a platform, you have a responsibility. I think if you would have led to that as opposed to saying you don't give a F what happens, nothing can happen to you. You're
Right.
going to say what you want to say. It would have been different to me, and we would have understood that it was a joke. But to me, like I said, 40 minutes of yeah, that wasn't a joke. That was an agenda. And then
It's
when you align those key figures, that key figure that he did and their particular stance on gender and trans women and their rights and how they're anti-trans when it comes to sports and a lot of the other things, to me made it furthermore that it was apparent that it was agenda that he was forwarding or pushing.
gotcha. And you know, and I appreciate you making that clarification, making that clarified because you know, I am a regular, boring heterosexual male, I guess cisgender, correct?
This is yeah.
You know, black male. You know what I'm saying? And what I saw it in one angle. Yes, I did the jokes. I heard there were some jokes that I saw. I was like, ooh, yeesh. Ooh, that nah, that ain't cool. But then I heard that last piece at the end, and you know, it touched me. You know, I was moved by the end with the end story about Daphne. But totally understood. I totally see what
And
you're
I
talking
also
about.
believe that that particular portion of it was strategically placed as well, because you say all
Right.
of the things that you want to say and spewed all this hate, but yet you want to claim it up and do damage control, like, oh, I nowhere at any form feel this way. I have a
No,
friend that's trans, and we all
I
know
was,
that
I was,
if a black person saying I'm not racist and they can name one white person, that stands out to us like you are racist if you only can name one white person, right? So
right.
to me, that I didn't buy that. I just felt like it just pushed his agenda. I mean,
Absolutely.
there was also a group of people. I believe that he offended women in general by jokingly stating that the Me Too movement and other feminist movements won't move until a man is added, right? Or
Uh,
himself. And that to me is problematic.
he did say that for sure. He really did say that. Um, within the stand up, right? Um, but yeah, you ain't wrong on that. I mean, like I said, I feel like he made fun of a lot of groups, different things. He made fun of, various things that we can't really say on this channel, unfortunately. That dealing with getting the poke, if you get what I'm saying.
Hmm.
Dodging this Rona and all that stuff. But then there was a good half of the last half of his special was basically surrounding this subject of the trans community. And so I definitely see what you're saying. Real quick, I want to open up the phone lines. Okay, 314-766-4581. Love to hear your thoughts on this whole situation, on this conversation. Join in on the conversation. Please give us a call, 314-766-4581. The lines are open right now. And I always say this, keep it classy, keep it polite, all right? And watch your language or you get cut. Okay? Just gonna be completely straight funky on that. All right. So can you tell us a little bit more about the uh, your newest organization, the Trans Women of Color Healing Project? Do you mind like expanding a little bit more on
Yeah.
this? How long
So
has it been out? What's going on with it?
I created the Trans Women of Color Healing Project in 2019 because I was a part of a leadership development cohort that was sponsored by the Transgender Strategy Center, AIDS United, which was called the Leadership Masterclass. And as one of the assignments that we had, our final project, we had to create a project. And I just created the organization because I believe that my goal and the mission of the Trans Women of Color Healing Project, which is to speak knowledge to power and to combat the erasure of trans lives, narratives, and most importantly, trans contributions to society, could not be done in a 6 month project. So I've wanted to create a project that will be a memoir. It will be it's an archive that's going to be comprised of elders and leaders in the trans community, where it's going to be for us, by us, and no one can take our words and take our words from us and spawn them into what they want them to do and manipulate. Because as black folks, they do that already, but as trans folks that really don't have a deep line of history like some folks have, even though we have been in existence, I wanted to create a platform where our voices would be present.
Sorry about that. Repeat that. I'm sorry. Somebody
I
just called.
wanted to create a platform where our voices will be present, and throughout history, that individual can go to that particular archive and see the interviews of leaders and women like myself, and think about and look at the contributions that they have made to society.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I do appreciate you starting this foundation, this organization, and everything. And there are a lot of people obviously a lot of people in the trans community that could use as much help as possible, especially trans people of color.
Yeah.
Most definitely, because it's I can only imagine what it's like out there right now. So I appreciate you creating that organization for real. There, somebody just tried calling, and I'm sorry I had to hang up because Toya was still speaking and talking about something very, very important. But please call back again. The phone lines are open. That was my bad. I shouldn't have asked that question. They're open the lines after you said what you needed to say. So I apologize about that. That was my mistake. But y'all, phone lines are open right now. Give us a call. 314-766-4581. If you just tried calling a second ago, I have many apologies. Lo siento. Try again. Give us a call. Love to hear your thoughts. We got a phone call. Hey, you're on the mic with the Pascal Show. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Pascal, how are you? It's Jordan Calla from Canada.
Jordan from Canada. What's up, man? What's on your mind? Speak on it, brother.
Listen, so I've been watching you guys, and I first of all, want to say I have a great respect for everybody. They have their own free will. I believe that everyone has their own freedom of choice. But one of the things that I've been thinking about is, so I'm 40 years old. I grew up in an era of watching Eddie Murphy Delirious, for example.
Mm-hmm.
And if we were to think back about that exact same stand-up that was being done then, now, when he was talking about AIDS and all of those issues, do you think that we'd be having the same backlash for a comedian like him? I do also. I have watched the special, and my opinion is that I think there is a very sensitive issue there, and I was kind of on the fence about how I felt about it at the time. But I also think that if you're going to watch Dave Chappelle, you might get punched in the face. And I think that he comes across, he came across maybe to some people offensive, and I don't think that was his intention. I believe that he was just doing comedy. I do feel bad for people that feel pain from that, because I do know the suffering from friends and people that I've known that do deal with, their own challenges in their sexuality, and the way that they may feel is not the way that I feel as a heterosexual male. So I am very empathetic to that. But I just wanted to know what your opinion was on the first question about Eddie Murphy and the kind of comedy that other comedians have done in earlier generations.
I want to throw this to Toya, because I see her percolating, so I'm gonna let her say her piece here. Go ahead.
I believe that if we're not aware, history repeats itself. And just because it was done back then does not mean that it was okay. I believe that we are evolving for a reason. We have identified issues and some of the things that are problematic, especially as Black folk in America. Some of the language and some of the beliefs that were in existence back then, and traditions are traditions that we have eradicated because we believe that they were harmful to folks. So I believe that some of the language, for lack of a better term, the lack of terminology existed back then. So not to say that they got the okay on it, but there was not so much as sensitivity, because the visibility for trans folks and the way that we are now was not as apparent. So it was almost safe to say that there was not much of representation that this community of people existed. So now that this community of people have come forward and exist, and we're telling you that this is problematic and this is how we feel, I believe that certain individuals are getting the pass. Like you said, we should just excuse that. No, that's not excusable behavior when you are adding a fuel to the fire, and you're galvanizing a group of people that will use the words that you say toward the hate and the harm that's being targeted toward trans folk, black trans women primarily.
Yeah. I'll say this. I'll say this, because I don't know what happened. We lost Jordan from Canada, but I'll say this. I do think, excuse me. I do think that it was a different time, and that there was a time where the LGBTQ community was muted, was silenced, was, I hate to use this term, but in the closet. Where there was no full out pride, or not a
representation.
Exactly, not a strong front for people who are out there, knowing that they were a part of that community. So jokes that Eddie Murphy was saying at that time were okay, were socially acceptable because there wasn't a strong voice for the LGBTQ plus community out there at that time. Now, if Eddie Murphy did those jokes now, hell no, he'd be on the cancel culture block. He'd be on the cancellation block, chopping block without a
Okay,
shadow
so
of a doubt.
just imagine some of the stories and some of the movies that we watch as Black folks now that were popular movies back then. You ever revisit those and be like, "Oh wow, oh
Man,
wow,
you know
wow."
what? There was a movie, oh man, Soul Man, where this guy had to take pills to darken his skin so he can use
Blackface.
affirmative action to get
That was
into,
blackface.
and it was full on
That's
blackface.
minstrelsy. Yeah,
See what I'm saying? Like that one just pops in my head every single time when I think about movies that we watched as children that were comedies that were socially acceptable back then. But if they try to do that stuff now, woo,
no, it won't. It won't.
hell no. You see what I'm saying? But our phone lines are still open, 314-766-4581. I know a bunch of you guys are still trying to call in. Please give us a call, 314-766-4581. It's time for a little speak on it. But yeah, I do think that back in the day, things were a lot different than they are right now. Obviously, there are the voices in many groups, not only just in the LGBTQ plus community. The voices in many groups have become stronger. There's a bigger front, and thanks to how we have progressed as humans and how we have progressed as a society. And yes, I say that, and I say that there's a double-edged sword to that, right? Because still, no matter what, you could have people that are out there trying to voice on behalf of the disenfranchised and the ostracized people, but there are also on the opposing side just as strong, if not stronger, voices of people that are trying to knock those particular groups down as well.
Absolutely. I mean, we
So
just
no
had
matter
an
what.
administration that had a whole team of individuals put in place to combat the progress that we had, that we received as trans folk. So I understand totally what you're saying.
Yeah. And and like I said, I mean, we need to have these kind of conversations. We need to have these uncomfortable conversations with everybody, so that we can find a happy medium, find that place of respect, and find that place of understanding. But I don't think. I mean, I feel like I know this sounds weird, but maybe. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I should even say that because I don't want to go there because I
No,
don't
you
want to
can
seem
say
like
it.
I'm not trying to okay, so I'm gonna say it. We wouldn't be having this conversation right now if Dave Chappelle didn't do that stand up.
No, we would not.
So even so, it was obviously disrespectful, transphobic, punching down. He even talked about punching down in that special, and I do think that he was punching down in moments. My own personal opinion, of course. But if he didn't have that conversation, if he did not go up there and exercise that monologue or exercise that whole stand up, you and I would not be talking about this right now. You and I would not even be expanding our thoughts and expanding our minds.
Right. And so,
What I'm saying?
that to me, and that raises the eyebrow of intentionality. And as trans folks, we only exist when we're able to provide a service, and I think that has to be eradicated. I know for me, and there's a legion of Black trans women that support all of the movements, all of the marches that take place, Black Lives Matter, um, all of the movements that take place. We are a part of that. I don't smoke marijuana, but I was part of the decriminalization because I saw what it was doing to my Black people here in Atlanta. Half of the causes that I use my brand to represent, I don't use they won't be beneficial to me, but yet I advocate and fight because I'm Black first. And we don't, as trans folks, we don't get that same support from the Black community.
Mm-hmm.
And when he said in his special that we are pushing a white man's agenda, that kind of decolorizes us and erases our intersections and all of the contributions that we have made as Black trans women. So so when you said that, I was like, okay, well, no, we would not be having that conversation. But why is it that the only time we have conversations with trans folks, if something happens, or we need our hair done, our makeup, or we need something that only they can specialize in, we feel, then they're of use. But we're not a part of the conversations about and a part of daily lives.
That's touche. You have a point there, and I hear you 100%. I think that when it comes down to this special, because I mean, okay, let's talk about that. What I have in my mind right here. Sorry, I'm working this out live right now, guys. So when it comes to this thing, right, when we're talking about this conversation being brought up, we're talking about all this. Okay. I'm gonna get to that. Hold on. Hey, you on the mic with the Pascal Show? What's your name? Where are you calling from? Hello.
Hey, you on the mic with the Pascal Show? What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Michael Baran from St. Louis, Missouri.
Michael Baran from St. Louis, Missouri. What's up, man? How you doing, my brother? Hey, do me a favor. Just mute the show in the background. But Michael Baran is a good friend of the show, and he runs a YouTube channel called Wildlife Command Center, and he also has a reality show on Discovery Plus called Bare Hands Rescue. But how you doing, man? What's on your mind? Speak on it, brother.
I've been listening to you for 40-something minutes now, and really compelling. And I really love Toya's point here about intentionality. And driving home on, I tried to watch the special. I just don't like Dave Chappelle. He offends me. Like, I'm just offended. So I just can't watch it. Couldn't watch the whole thing so I could know firsthand. But intentionality, is that really where Dave Chappelle is coming from? Because I think that's where we could put our finger on it. And Pascal, you know me pretty well.
Yeah.
And I'm in Hollywood all the time. I'm in Las Vegas all the time. I have trans friends, and they're just like everybody. Like, some of them, if they wouldn't have told me, or if they hadn't had this conversation, I don't know what gender they are. They're just friends. You know what I mean? But with this Dave Chappelle intentionality, is he really intending to be that offensive towards the transgender community?
Toya.
Yeah, I believe he was. Like I was telling Pascal, I'm sorry. That's
okay,
New Orleans
Pascal.
in me. I'm from New Orleans, so you got to
okay.
excuse that sometime.
Yeah.
Like I was telling him, 40 minutes of abuse, hate, and inconsideration, and blatant disrespect toward any group of people is not a joke when you are forwarding and supporting the beliefs of a person with an agenda. So to me, it was intentional. Even his last story, felt like it was compelling. I believe that was his way of throwing a rock and hiding his hand to take his hands off. After you've done all the damage, now you're going to stand over them and say, oh, well, I'm sorry, now get up. I ain't mean to beat you up that bad. That was your intentions. When you use the story with Daphne was just a prop to me that you used to change the tone, because you said you didn't care what people thought. This was your last special, but you did. And when you used that story about Daphne, to me that really was like, okay, well, now he has an agenda. Because if he didn't use that story, I'd have been like, well, he just rogue. He really don't care. But you tried to bring everything back with the Daphne story, to me, which tried to paint yourself like a human when you have already painted us like we're animals and we're non-existent as human beings.
Michael, you have anything you want to say?
No, I might have to actually suffer through.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
So that I can look and see if I can feel intentionality.
I think it's an hour and 20 minutes, and 45 of it was
I mean,
45 minutes of it was geared toward the LGBT community,
right,
primarily trans folk.
right. I mean, it was definitely there was definitely a focus. Long story short, there was a focus. Um, and I do think that there was, I don't know. Of course, I watched it with different eyes, right? Um, and with a different background. Um, and obviously, I'm biased when I was watching it because I do think Dave Chappelle is the GOAT. But in the long run, what I was just saying a second ago, which I'm going to expand on here in a second after I take a few more calls, is that this conversation would not have happened if that did not happen. And this is what I meant by I was going to expand on that because we do need to have these kind of conversations more often, right? The trans community's voice needs to be heard more often, not just because of some stand-up special by Dave Chappelle. Yes, I get that it's offensive. I get it. I do. But we wouldn't be tapping on it. We wouldn't be getting phone calls from people all over the country of all different walks of life. Shoot, all over the world. We just got a phone call from Canada. If it wasn't for the stand-up, if it wasn't for that stand-up. So it's interesting. It's kind of like I said, a double-edged sword. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. But it is opening up a can of worms that needs to be addressed. I do believe. But Michael, thank you so much for the phone call, my brother. I appreciate you calling in and throwing in your 2 cents, man.
All right, man. You have a great night.
You too, man. Peace. So this is exactly what I was trying to say. Hopefully I can squeeze this in before another phone call. How do we have these conversations? That's what I was letting it ruminate in my head when we got that phone call from Michael.
I'm having conversations about things that happens, talking about commonality.
Okay, well, hold that thought. Sorry. This person's been trying to call. Hey, you're on the mic with the Pascal Show. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
I'm sorry to you. What was that?
Hey, you're on the mic with the Pascal Show. What's your name and where are you calling from?
How you doing? My name is Trevor.
Trevor,
I'm calling from South Carolina. How you doing? Big fan of your show.
Oh, thank you, my brother. What's on your mind, man? Speak on it.
Just a few things. So, I'm not completely literate in the trans community situation. Newscasts, hearing people speak. There's a few questions that I have, and the first question is, what exactly did Dave Chappelle say in his comedy stand-up that was transphobic?
Did you hear that, Toya?
I've asked a number of people that question, and nobody seems to be able to tell me what he actually said. They can tell me how they felt.
That's
though.
Fair. That's
so
no.
That.
That's fair. That is a fair question. That is totally fair. Toya.
Yeah. Okay, so first of all, he stated that he didn't recognize trans women as women, primarily. He also felt that he made jokes about the bathroom and genitalia and all of the other.
Yeah, we can still hear you. Toya's answering. I don't know why he can't hear you, but go ahead and answer. If you have to turn on your show where you're watching this right now, my brother, that might be helpful. I don't know why it's backfiring for some weird reason, but Toya, I'm sorry.
So the first thing he said was that trans and gay folk, black trans and gay folks are not black enough, which is disrespectful. It erases all of my identities, my contributions, my existence. It erases that. So when you go into the gender piece, you're supporting the belief of this feminist that don't believe trans women are women. You said you don't have a problem with trans women, but you're also supporting the beliefs of this individual that don't believe trans women are women. So that's another erasure of my existence and my contributions, right? So then you're also feeding into the hate, the attacks that we as trans people face, primarily black trans women, because you're galvanizing a group of people that was not able to look at the show like you and come from it with optimism and all of this. They're going straight to those keywords, those trigger words. Trans women are not women. Trans women shouldn't be in the bathroom. And those are the same things that the former administration used to build policies, and he was able to create whole laws based off of a hate. And I think that's what he's doing with this. He's identifying those pockets of hate to further push his agenda.
Did you hear that, my brother?
I think he hung up.
He might have hung up.
No, I'm still here. I was on mute. Sorry, because I wanted to hear what you were saying.
Absolutely.
So I definitely do understand what you're saying, but that's not transphobia. So you want him to take responsibility on how people interpret what he says.
No, not at all. I don't want him.
No,
I
get it. He said
I want him to be cognizant of his platform.
I completely understand that.
Yeah.
Two references to the first two items that you mentioned. The first item saying trans women aren't black enough. I didn't quite hear him say that, but there were a couple of points he made that I have actually heard other trans people make in discussions as well as other videos that points in that direction.
No, because he said that being gay was a European ideology. That was something a white man created.
People are asking trans people, what is your ultimate goal? I'm still trying to understand what the ultimate goal is. I don't think my trans brothers and sisters should be out dying in the street because they're trans. I don't believe that. That should not be happening. I don't think anybody should hate a trans person for being trans. There are some things that trans people are not taking responsibility for, such as there's quite a few trans people that don't think they should tell, specifically trans women, don't think that they should tell heterosexual men that they're trans while they're dating them.
Gotcha. But that's also opening up. That's also opening up a completely different can of worms. That's something a little bit different.
Going holistic on Dave Chappelle's. They're going holistically on how Dave Chappelle could affect the community against trans people. So we don't discuss how trans people can affect the community. So it does have to go both ways. And I don't hear that. I just hear he's transphobic because of the stand-up. I never hear anybody say exactly what he said that was transphobic.
Gotcha.
I do acknowledge what he just explained, that it could be taken by other people and twisted into some kind of transphobic action against transphobic people. But any speech can do that. It's not just his stand-up comedy. We can't hold him accountable for other people's actions in that sense.
Gotcha.
They're not smart enough to do what's right. We can't say Dave Chappelle's fault. But that's all.
Okay.
Good luck to you, sister, and keep up the good work. Oh, I do have one question. What exactly are trans women, specifically black trans women, fighting for? And I'll drop.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for the phone call. Take care.
He asked a whole bunch of stuff, and
There was a lot to unfold.
There's a lot to unpack here.
Yeah.
No, he like you said, he removed his hands, but he did feed into the language. Like we all know that there are certain words that will trigger different types of reactions, and he used those words that are triggering for men that have an issue with trans women. As far as the whole component, I don't believe that, even though I live my life as who I am, very transparent, but I don't believe that I owe a conversation to anyone about how I live my life or why I live my life, or have to explain or justify my existence. And I think that's what they're asking of trans people. When we meet cis folks, they don't come into the equation justifying and offering so much of themselves. But why do we have to offer that when that's not even a part of my life you're going to occupy? That's not your business.
Gotcha. And I think he did ask another question.
What is it that we're looking for? We want equity. We want equality. We want to be just remembered and looked at as humans. And these type of shows and that type of language that was spewed out on the show erases the humanity, the sympathy, all of the things that every other human being would experience, that was taken away from us as trans folk because of the picture that he was painting.
I see. You know, and this is also going off and piggybacking what I was trying to say, or what we were talking about before that phone call came in. I am going to open up the phone lines again here in a second. I shut them down so we can actually have this conversation. But my question is, what I was trying to write off of what we were just saying a second ago. I think that what is necessary is this conversation being brought out and thrown into the forefront right now. Because like our caller who called in and just said, hey, what is it that, trans women, what is it that they're, what is their agenda, or what is it that they need or want?
Equity and equality.
Right. But what I'm saying is the fact that he's asking that question seems as if it's not a conversation, or that voice, that agenda, that need for equality, equity, and equality is not out there enough. So being able to have more of these conversations will make us more savvy to what's going on.
Absolutely.
So of course, like I said, like I said a second ago, I think this conversation would not be put out here. We would not be talking about it. I'll just be really honest. If the stand-up didn't exist, and there is that whole damned if you do, damned if you don't type of situation here. But I am thankful that it is out here, because it's giving people of the trans community a voice to speak out again and make it abundantly clear what it is that what they want, what they don't.
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. I appreciate you for asking me to be here. I appreciate the place that I am in, and those individuals that have inspired me, so I can use this as a teaching lesson and not meet it with the energy that I believe I was faced with when I saw the show. I was able to come from a place that a good place, and still be able to deliver the message and be able to advocate for my people, for my community, because I believe that, as he said, no one person can speak for a collective. And I think the issue with now, and even us as Black folks, we have not earned the right to self-identify. If I do one thing, I will be representing the trans community. If no one didn't know that I was trans, I'll be a Black woman. So I will be now this Black woman that's crazy. She ran over people. This Black trans woman. It's not about me as an individual. We're still representing a collective. And I think we have not evolved as a people to be able to self-identify. And I think that's the issue. Allow people to be themselves. Allow individuals to self-identify.
Right. Could you also say that maybe and maybe I'm echoing and repeating what you're saying, so correct me, or my apologies. But could we also say that the trans community has not fully developed yet, for lack of a better term?
No, I'm not going to say fully developed. The issue is that even with our existence, we're fighting stigma, stereotypes. Trans women are deemed and looking a certain type of way, and if you're not trans, right? So there's so many different things that are policing the trans movement. Even within communities, we police ourselves, and women do it all the time, men do it all the time. But with trans communities, so many people have their hands on how we should show up, and not allowing those individuals that are actually showing up, you're not receiving them for how they're showing up, because you have your perception of how they should show up, and that's not fair to them.
Actually, that's a very good point. That's a very good point. I think that's the other thing too. There is no individuality.
Yeah, with visibility comes awareness, and now that we're visible, you see that there's all types of trans individuals, just like there are all types of women, all types of men. We show up in multiple facets. There's no one particular representation for a trans woman.
Right. Instead of just being lumped into just one category.
Allow people to self-identify. I think if we're able to do that as a people, we will be better off in general, and not just saying, oh, this black man, but get a chance to know that person, understand their name so you can have a little more detail about them. So allow their actions to separate them, not your perception.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, Toya Washington, I want to say a big thank you for being on. Can you tell everybody, if anybody wants to get involved with your foundation,
Absolutely.
or other foundations that you are involved in, where they can go? It's okay. I have to do my thing.
So you can reach me at the TWOC Healing, www.twochealingproject.com. You can email me at twchealingproject@gmail, or you can follow the Facebook, which is the same, TWOC Healing Project on Facebook, Twitter. All of my handles are the same, so you can. All of my platforms, the name is the same, so you can find me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and my actual website is www.twchealingproject.com.
Excellent. Again, I want to say a big thank you again for being on. I really do appreciate it. Like I've said a million times before, this is something these are conversations that we need to start having more often, because the thing is that there are people out here that deserve to have a voice, not just because of a special coming out and all of a sudden, oh my God, clutch my pearls. No, we need to have these conversations more often. There are people out here that need to have their voices heard. And so again, Toya Washington, thank you so much for coming on and just blessing us with your time and talking about this and receiving those phone calls as well. You know what I'm saying? You just never know where you're going to get on the receiving end, on the end of that phone call. So I do appreciate you. I appreciate you being here and being a part of the conversation for real. But real quick, before we get going, I want to say to everybody, thank you so much for being on. Thank you so much for being a part of the conversation. All right. If you haven't done it yet, please do me that small favor. Like I got to do it. You know how it is, y'all. Please hit that like button down below. Crush it. I'd love to see it go past 100 likes. That would really mean a lot to me. And also don't forget to crush that subscribe button. Seriously, just do yourself a favor. Just tap it. Or just hit it so hard it breaks your screen, but don't send me the bill. Okay. Don't send me that iPhone screen bill, repair bill. Okay. All right. And of course, you can go and hit that join button or go and hit that Patreon. Go and check it out. We do have some merch. So please go to thepascalshowmerch.com. Check out all of that ish. That would really be appreciated. Okay. But anyway, guys, it is about that time. It is time to get going. I will be back on tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Central Standard Time. This train don't stop, baby. So please tune in tomorrow morning. I'll see you guys then. Be good to yourselves. Be good to one another. And I'll see you guys very, very soon. This is The Pascal Show. Bye.
Homeowners and property managers, if you're looking for effective and humane ways to remove wild animals and deal with the damage that they have caused, we have good news for you. Introducing Wildlife Command Center, a professional nuisance wildlife management company specializing in providing animal removal for residential, industrial, and commercial clients. We are the only wildlife company that checks 70 different areas on a structure to determine the answers to the following questions. Exactly which animal are we dealing with? How is the animal getting inside the home? What kind of damage is the animal doing to the structure? Once we get the answers to all of these questions, we develop and write up an action plan to resolve the animal issue completely and provide a quote to implement that action plan. We perform a very in-depth 70-point wildlife inspection. From visually inspecting the highest point, the chimney, to physically crawling inside the attic space and looking for animals, chewed wires, fecal matter, chewed structural wood. We inspect everything. Our inspection process covers all of the following 70 points: animal-proof chimney cap, roof ridge vents, roof to soffit junctions, dormer fascia, attic gable vents, gutter lines, fascia trim, garage door, utility penetrations, water, gas, electric, and cable, bathroom vents, attic roof ridge vents, attic electrical, wiring, junctions, boxes, and lighting, concrete decks, additions, wooden crawl spaces, basement plumbing, penetrations, ceiling, floor, and wall. Wildlife Command Center's mission is to deliver the finest quality wildlife removal and pest control service that is safe for the environment. For more information, call us now.